Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. So glad you're all here today. It is right at the top of the hour. I'm going to let some folks trickle in for just a moment, but we are so excited to have you here today for our Magnet Culture webinar. Woohoo! All right. Oh, I see some friendly names of faces in here that I know. Hey, Tony. Hey, Rachel, Karen, Johnny, Darcy. Good to see you all. Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. All right. Folks are still pouring in. Make sure that you can find that chat function down at the bottom and tell us where you are calling in from today. I know we've got followers and friends and fans all around the country. So let us know where you're messaging in from. We'd love to hear from you as everybody joins us today. So awesome. All right. We got Missouri, Texas, Iowa, Michigan, another Texas. There we go. Minnesota. Hey. All right. Hopefully, here in the Louisville area, our weather's getting a little better, although it's kind of hit or miss every day, a little bit. But our snow is gone, thank goodness, that we had for weeks. So excellent, excellent, awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much for your time. I hope you guys, some of you are lunching right now, snacking, totally fine. And I'm so excited to take today's conversation in a little bit different direction than what I have historically been teaching. So, welcome to Magnet Culture's Workforce webinar. So happy that you're here. My name is Cara Silletto. I am the founder, president, and chief retention officer here at Magnet Culture. And today we're going to talk about foolproofing yourself. How do we foolproof ourselves and build kind of a well-oiled machine for our day, for our life, for our work, for our team? I happen to be very, very organized. I'm actually kind of a 50-50 left brain, right brain type of person. I love performing and music and the arts just as much as I love processes and spreadsheets and checklists, which is super strange. And since I figured out this superpower that I have, I thought, I'm going to help folks with this process side today and really think about how do we get through our day with the most productivity, the most efficiency, the most effectiveness as well. And that's what I'm going to be sharing some tips with you about. So, we still will tie it into retention of how we help organizations and leaders reduce employee turnover. So, as we've been teaching about retention strategies for 13 years, we now are realizing that the biggest barrier to implementing those strategies is time and the behavior change that is needed to be a better leader, to be a better communicator, to be more organized and have your priorities straight. All right. So today I'm going to share those kind of personal organization tips that I use at work and a few at home, so that you can hopefully get more time from your day. All right. This whole do more with less. This is my attempt to help you do more with less moving forward. Now, if you are not already a follower of ours on YouTube, go now to youtube.com/magnetculture and subscribe, because anytime we drop little short micro videos or these webinar recordings, you'll be notified for that. So make sure you do that. And you can always go to our website, magnetculture.com/webinars, to see the latest ones as soon as those are posted. So we'll have this recording up in a few days and you can share it with your team, because hopefully you're going to get some great nuggets today that you want to pass along to others as well. Now, if you're here joining us live today, which is exciting, please feel free to use the chat. I can see that. There's also a Q&A box if you want to do more of an anonymous question. I'll be answering those at the end. So feel free to kind of put your thoughts, put your questions, and give me an amen if you love something, or maybe you also have tried it or done it in a similar fashion. Put that info into the chat and I'd love to share that. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen here. And we are going to kick things off to help you foolproof, yourself moving forward here. So, all right, I got to move some things around on my screen. Pardon me. All right. And I think we're good to go. All right. So First things first, you should know that I was that kid. Okay. I was the kid when I was little that mom would say to me, "Hey, don't forget to take out the trash when you get home from school." And then at 5 o'clock, she'd come strolling in and she'd say, "Why is the trash can not empty? Why has it not been taken out?" And I said, "Oh, sorry, I forgot." So, all these things that she asked me to do, I would say, "Sorry, I forgot." And it was over and over and over. And if you've ever heard my webinars and you've heard me talk about my mom, she's the best mom ever. But when I was a kid, she was a bit of a pushover. So I didn't get in trouble very often. And she would just say, "Okay, well, I'll take it out." Or, "Okay, we'll take it out now." And I didn't get punished. And so I didn't change my behavior. I just forgot all the time. Now, what happens is you grow up and that becomes an issue. So I remember her telling me in my first job that, Cara, if you get a job and your boss tells you to do something, and a day later or a week later they ask about it, and you say, "I forgot, sorry," you will get fired. Because she said, "I'm sorry I didn't raise you to follow through on those things, but now is the time." So I had to quickly foolproof myself. So I grabbed some post-its and I would write it down. I would take a notepad. I also learned that, right? Take a notepad with me everywhere to meetings and even down the hall because somebody was going to stop me and ask for something. So really important that I learned to do that. So I changed my behavior. I wasn't naturally good at remembering those things, but I grabbed post-it notes, I wrote it down, and then I wrote down this, and I wrote down this, and I wrote down this, and I wrote down this. And before I knew it, I was that person that had the post-it notes everywhere. My desk, my keyboard, my computer monitor, all of these things had my post-it notes everywhere. In fact, our HR manager because of me, banned post-it notes, all right, as a company expense, as an office supply, and said, "Y'all have to buy your own post-it notes because I'm tired of a few of us just using them like water and having them everywhere." So I'm sorry to my team back then that I got the post-it notes banned, but I did graduate to some other systems and other processes, and I'm going to share those with you today. So I want to ask you, do you always follow through, right? When people catch you in the hall and email you, when are you always following through, or do we sometimes break the trust? Because sometimes, and it's for good reasons, like, "Oh, I got pulled into a meeting. Oh, I had to fight another fire that was more important, honestly." Or, "Sorry, it just slipped my mind. I got a lot of things going on." So, in that situation, we need to realize, I'm going to get serious for a minute. If you are dropping balls and missing deadlines and letting people down, you are breaking trust. Okay. It means that your team can't count on you. And I know you're a great person that you should be able to be counted on, right? But sometimes we get so busy, that's just not possible. So, a lot of what I'm going to teach today is going to help you create this kind of well oiled process and machine so that you don't drop those balls and miss those deadlines. But first things first, we have to stop relying on our memory, okay? I don't care how great your memory is. We have too much going on coming at us for everybody to do that. So, first things first, we have to write more things down, whether that's physically or digitally for sure. So, just a couple of quick back to basics tips here is carry that notepad with you, a little one in your pocket or whatnot if you want it to be physical, or use post-it notes, have those readily available. I have them in different rooms of our house that I put post-it notes. Like if I need to remember food that's in the fridge the next day, I'll put the post-it note on my purse so that I don't forget it when I walk out the door the next morning, right? So use those post-it notes, use tools available to you. Put it on your calendar if that is the best way. You can email yourself. I do this all the time when I have ideas, even in the middle of the night, or if I'm out at an airport, I have an idea. I'm going to email myself. And I just learned a new one. I didn't know that you could text yourself, which other people apparently already do that, but you can actually text your own phone number, and then it'll pop up. I mark it as unread, and then I'm going to come back to that later. So let's be honest about everything we are juggling right now. Okay, we know you've got so much going on, way more than what could certainly fit into that 40-hour week or 50 or 60-hour week that you are working. And so we have to figure out some better ways here. Now, if your emails say things like, sorry for the delay, thanks for your patience, could I get an extension? I know that deadline was yesterday, but I need a little more time. Oh, my apologies. We have got to try harder, okay? We've got to try something at least. Show your team that you are putting in effort to really become that better communicator, that better boss. And what I have learned from experience, my own work experience, running my business, working with clients, working with my team, I have learned that if you have some better processes in place, and then the discipline to follow those processes, as hard as it is to get started, if you get there, if you put in that effort, it buys you freedom later, because those little consistencies that we put in place day by day by day are going to buy you massive results and more free time over time. Okay. So let's start first with kind of how do we even pick what we're working on? Big picture, how do we set those goals and those priorities? Now, in our retention programs, we have created a retention roadmap that some of our clients do. For example, at the end of our 2-day leadership retreat about retention, we say, all right, now you've got to come up with quarterly focus areas. So let's say your Q2, March 1st is coming up soon. So your Q2 quarterly goal is going to be, I'm going to drop less balls, right? I'm going to miss less deadlines. I'm going to communicate better with my team and really write more things down and keep track of what needs to be done. So if that is your quarterly focus area, then you pick bite-sized ways to get there. All right. And I'm gonna walk you through that today of how do we really set those tasks that need to be done. So, if you're an organizational leader, you might be saying, yes, we're working on employee retention. We are setting these quarterly focus areas. And if you don't know which areas to focus on, I encourage you to consider going through our employee retention ecosystem audit tool. We launched this new ecosystem last year. Many of you have heard me. If you haven't seen the webinar on that, go to our YouTube page, go check that out. But we do have an audit tool that's here in the Magnet Vault. So in the Vault, we have that retention roadmap sheet with the quarterly focus areas. And we have that ecosystem audit tool where you can score, you and your leaders can score, where are we with the effectiveness of our onboarding, our compensation model, our capacity for leaders, those different areas to help you prioritize. Okay. So first things first is we have to set the right priorities and kind of project goals that we want to hit or behavior change goals that we want to work toward. All right. So think big first. What's your annual or quarterly goals and focus areas that you want to do? And then we put the behavior change behind it. So this is where the foolproofing comes in, and the checklists and the reminders and those pieces of the puzzle. All right. So if we're going to have behavior change, we need to think about what do we do daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually for that behavior change. I mean, you could do this with anything, right? If I say I want to work out more, all right, well, daily, or be healthier in general, daily, I'm going to drink more water. Weekly, I'm going to work out 2, 3, 4 times a week, whatever that specific goal is. I'm going to work towards certain strength goals or weight goals that are quarterly or annually, that type of thing. So we have to get all the way down to the daily behavior of what is going to get me that result that I want in the end. Okay. And a lot of this, I think, starts with calendar reminders. Just setting calendar reminders for yourself. Now, a key here, be real careful because I'm going to share all kinds of things that we need to be working on. You have to prioritize and don't overcommit yourself because you're probably already really busy. And yes, we'd love to improve this and this and this and this, but we can't do it all at the same time. So, choosing quarterly focus areas is the way to really focus on that behavior change and get the results that you want. So, pick an area that you want to work on and then set some calendar reminders, whether that's a nightly reminder, a morning reminder, 3 times a week reminder, whatever those are. Okay. So here's some examples. If I were to work on some retention strategies in particular, daily, I'm going to start using a new simple team huddle agenda. Right? That's going to be a behavior change that instead of just saying, all right, how's everybody doing? Everything good? What do we need to do? And just kind of winging that meeting, I'm going to create an agenda. In fact, in a few minutes, I have that sample agenda to share with you. But my first task is going to be my daily change is update my daily team huddle agenda when we're swapping shifts, right? Weekly, I'm going to set some reminders to thank my staff and a reminder to check in on my new hires if I have any. Okay, so those might be 1 or 2 reminders throughout the week that I have recurring on my calendar. Now, monthly, if I'm truly working on reducing turnover, then I have picked a quarterly focus area, and monthly, I need to block some time to work on that, right? To either strategize or to revamp if I'm revamping my onboarding or to review something that I want to upgrade or enhance. So we want to block some time for those projects that we're working on. And I try to do that at least monthly to move it forward a little bit each month. Okay. So, of course, at the end of the quarter, you're going to pick the next quarterly focus area. And annually is your big picture goals. What are we really trying to accomplish? And how are those quarterly goals going to get us there? Okay, so that's the daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually type of approach. I use this approach with anything, right? The financial side of my business, what do I need to do? Daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. For the marketing side of my business, what do I need to do? Daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. If you get into that mindset, that will help you identify the processes needed. So many people are not process folks naturally, and I get that. So that's what this activity, thinking, okay, what do I need to do daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually for this to happen? That is a process approach if you are not wired that way naturally. Okay. So hopefully that'll be a good tip for you. Now, how in the world do I keep track of all this stuff? Because if you're, let's say, a director of nursing, you've got clinical things that have to happen daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, and you've got your staff things, right? Checking in with your people daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. It can be overwhelming if you start to add those up. Well, there's multiple ways. Now, we can always start with the basics, just paper lists, keeping your to-do list. I have friends who still operate that way and it works for them. Where most people are or should go next is with the calendar reminders, the recurring calendar management. I've got some tips on that in a few minutes as well. And then also moving into spreadsheets. That would be a very basic version, but it's more digital, easier to copy and paste, easier to make kind of recurring checklist boxes for week by week, things like that. So you can just pull up a Google Sheets or a Microsoft Excel and start putting in your list there as well. Or for, over time, I would love to see everybody that's in leadership get into a task management software. Your company may have something available. Or if they're not, there are several free versions for individuals to use, like Asana, Monday.com, ClickUp. There's a bunch of different programs out there. So that is more of a system that lets you put your task lists in, set deadlines. It's going to notify you and help you prioritize. So depending on where you are, I hope today kind of helps people, whether you're a not organized at all person trying to just do a few things differently, you're sort of organized and would like to be better, or you're really organized and you're looking for some advanced level tips here. I'm hopefully today going to be able to show you a few things in each of those areas. All right. So I hope everybody gets some value there. Now, something else to think about with your systems is ideally you want systems that people can collaborate with. So that's why our company actually switched from, I was using Excel for everything, right? Microsoft Excel. And I shifted over to using Google Docs because it was more collaborative. Multiple people could be in the document at the same time, checking off different parts of the checklist. And it just gave us some other tools like version control that was a little bit easier. Some of you may have other software and tools that use that. My point is be intentional. Think about what system you are using and is it working, or should I be using a system or a different system as well? Okay, so if you're going to go to a spreadsheet, for example, whatever system you're using, this was an example that I just made where a leader wanted to track their activity. They said, I'm all in on this employee retention ecosystem. I know I need to be a better leader and gardener for my house plants of my employee base. And so I need to start tracking that I am truly checking in with my people, that I am truly thanking my people, that I'm checking on my new hires. So I built out this template for her that you can see here is, first week of the month, second week of the month, third week of the month. So on her calendar, she just has a short 15 or 30-minute check your scorecard, right? We call this kind of the scorecard. And it is check your scorecard or fill in your scorecard. And this reminds her that first week of the month, I need to check on my new hires. I need to thank a certain number of staff that I have, my goal, like thank 3 people or 5 people or 10 people. And then I also need to ask some team building questions at my team huddles. So that way we're sure if she follows this activity tracker that at least the first week of every month she's doing some proactive team building with her folks. Okay, second week of the month we're going to again check on new hires, again thank our people. We're also going to schedule at least one, if not 2 or 3, kind of genuine check-in times with our folks. And then we're also going to reinforce some company updates, ensure everyone feels equipped. Hey, I know we got this new software, you all went through training, does anybody have questions? Anybody need more support, right? Because our job as a leader is also to help them navigate change. So you get the point here. This is just one version of behavior change tracking. If you really are serious about doing better, you can make yourself a very simple spreadsheet to track your own behavior. Okay. One even simpler than this would just be checking in with your people. In fact, in the Vault, we have a check-in checklist that's downloadable, and it has a little journal at the bottom where you can mark what day and who you talk to, just to keep track of that. Because the days go by so fast, and we think, oh, I checked in with her recently, but really it was like 2 months ago. Okay, so we have to be honest and I really hate the word accountable, but if you truly want to hold yourself accountable, then you've got to be tracking that activity. Now, if you're advanced enough to go to a system, here's an example I just pulled kind of from my finance board of my task tracking that every week I need to deposit the checks that come in. Every week I need to send out the invoices that are due that week. The first and third week of the month, so monthly, I'm going to pay bills. Monthly, I'm going to review the income and expenses that have happened in our area, right, or our department. Quarterly, of course, I have to pay the taxes. Don't want to forget that. We have to file the taxes annually and then work on our budget and forecast for the next year annually. So each of these items has a recurring task and a schedule on it that pings me when it's time to do that task. So that's why these task management systems are just fabulous. We use Monday.com, but like I said, Asana.com is another great one, and there's several out there. So if you've got other tools that you all use, pop that in the chat. I'd love to learn about other task management and prioritization tools as well. All right. So I mentioned that you should use a meeting agenda. Every time your team gets together, whether it's the department heads are all getting together or the shift change huddle for my healthcare folks, where one group has to pass the department, the unit over to the next group, whenever your teams are getting together, please have an agenda and stop winging it because we're actually missing the opportunity to cover some really important ground here. So, for example, this is like the absolute simplest agenda that I could share, but I think it works for a lot of meetings. And that is, we call it, we start with GBU, the good, bad, and the ugly. That is our like, how was your weekend? How are you doing? And we encourage our staff to tell us something to celebrate, something going on in their lives, anything they want support for. And some person might say, well, my kids have a dance competition this weekend. Other people might say, my grandma's in the hospital, or my dog is sick, or, different things. But that is a really good connection point time for our folks. In fact, that serves as micro team building that we are putting into that meeting. So that time is really important to go around the group and let folks kind of share something quickly about what's going on in their lives. Then we're going to give some company updates. Hey, here's a legal change, here's a new person or a new admission or those kind of things that are going on, right? And that serves, what's cool is that line item serves as your change management. We're constantly asking you, well, you need to better manage change and you need to do more team building. Well, just we can build it into these agendas if we are more intentional about it. All right. So then we go to the department status or the team, like this group. What is our status? What are we working on? What has changed? What's happening? What are the goals for today? Who's doing what? Right? That piece is our collaboration and communication, which is critical. I think that department status line is pretty much what most meetings are. They're just forgetting some of these other opportunities that they could add to that conversation. And at the end, as a leader, we've got to ask who needs what? What do you need from me? Okay. And so putting support into that agenda as well is really important so that your team feels like, yes, my leader has time for me. Yes, they care about me. Yes, they can support me if I really need some help. All right. So, absolutely take a look at that for all the meetings that you have. See if this kind of agenda would work for you. And then remember, consistency is key. So, keep that agenda in the invitation on your calendar so everybody can see it every single time. Or if it's not a calendar invite, keep a little reminder on your own calendar every month. Are you still using, make the reminder, are you still using your agenda? Because what happens is we default when we get super busy, excuse me, we default back to our old ways. And so sometimes when you put a new process in place, a new agenda in place, sometimes we need to put a monthly or quarterly reminder out there that just says, are you still doing this? Are you still using this agenda? Because we may have gotten really underwater and defaulted back and forgot about the brilliance that we brought in and it was working, but then it kind of faded over time. So set yourself, maybe what I like to call it is your maintenance schedule and quarterly check on your maintenance schedule. Are you still doing those behaviors and activities that you promised yourself that you would do? All right. So another tip is to create checklists. Okay. I love checklists. And sometimes we have them around our buildings, the laminated step 1, step 2, step 3. Sometimes we use those. I think we should use even more, especially around onboarding and new hires coming in. So we have actually put together kind of an on-ramp, is what we call onboarding, is that on-ramp for new hires. We've put together an on-ramp checklist that every leader, every organization really needs to think about. And ideally, you want to write it down and make it in a collaborative document so the new hire can see it, the managers can see it, even the team can see it, and we can check off different boxes as we onboard that new person. Okay. So the way we think about this, just to give you some tips here, is create an organizational wide checklist. Like, here's what everybody needs to know. Here's what departmentally needs to be known, certain systems, certain schedules, certain expectations. Then what about role specific, right? Maybe an RN versus an LPN versus a CNA, if it happens to be like a healthcare group with different roles within that nursing department. Okay. And then I, as a leader of my own team, I have my own checklist of my preferences, my style, my communication methods. And that way, I walk through those unwritten expectations with every new hire so that hopefully we can get on the same page faster. All right. And then once you've created what needs to be covered, then we shift to, well, what needs to be covered when? So we encourage organizations to think about their onboarding checklist as, what does this new hire need to know day one, week one, month one, and quarter one? Okay. So I know that's a lot coming at you if you don't have an official type of checklist like this. But I'm just giving you an example of what it can be and what can be built over time. This doesn't happen overnight. These are projects. These are things that can come to fruition over 3, 6, 12 months. And I will tell you, if you go grab that on-ramp checklist that we created and put into magnetvault.com, if you go grab that, either use what we've got or start making your own version, your new hires will thank you. Your team will thank you because they're going to see that the new hires are more efficient, they have less mistakes. And so, anywhere that we see problems happening with staff, with new hires, conflict, we can often figure out, where did that misstep happen? Where was the gap in that communication? And how can we foolproof that with a checklist of, what's expected when? Okay. So the checklist. That's one of your big tips today. Now I'm going to get into a few kind of other tips and tricks for you. Some of these you're going to love and may have never heard of. Some of them you already do. Some of them you're saying, nope, not me. And that's okay. Today's kind of a mix of a lot of different tips. So the next one is, how about that inbox? How's your inbox going? Is it still flooding you? Is it still just kind of overflowing every single day? I hear this zero inbox strategy that folks have, and a lot of people think that's far-fetched, never going to happen. Well, I have learned some tricks, and I have even implemented a lot of these tricks here in order to get a hold of my inbox. So first things first, I have seen so many people, and I used to do it myself, where we make all these inbox folders. And after we're done with an email, we file it in the right folder. We're actually filing after it's complete. And the studies now show that you just need one completed folder, because the search, especially if you have AI in your email system, the search function is so good now that you can find emails from a certain person or about a certain topic pretty quickly. And it is now being proven that by putting things in all different folders actually takes you more time that's unnecessary. So I encourage you to have a completed check or folder in your inbox. And in fact, I label mine with the number 1 so that in the labels, it shows up right at the top. Okay. So make a completed folder and just start putting everything you're done with there. Also, a couple of things that get totally lost in our email. One is the things that I need for an upcoming meeting or an upcoming event or an upcoming use. And what happens is, let's say I get some parking instructions. Hey, for next week's breakfast, here's what the parking looks like. Well, by next week, that email is going to be so buried in my inbox, I'm going to have trouble finding it. And so I have a folder called Need for Upcoming Use. And anything that I am going to need, it's more of like an FYI or information that I need for some upcoming event, I'm going to put it there so that when I'm ready to prep for that event, I know where it's at. Okay. Then it gets it out of my inbox. It doesn't have to clutter all my to-do items. The third one is, how many of us get a million newsletters and, YouTube subscriptions or something that we want to watch, that we want to read that, but not right now because I'm at work, I'm busy, I don't have time for that. So I made a read or watch when time folder. And that one in particular, I like to go to that one on my phone if I'm sitting in my kids' car line at school because I need to be productive. I want to get some things done, but I can't really work during that time. So I'm going to go to that folder on my phone. Or I'm kind of a weirdo. I wake up early and I lay in bed for 30 to 60 minutes before I actually get up. And that's a great time for me to read those newsletters and knock those out of my inbox as well. Okay. So as they come into your inbox, you pop them into these folders. Now, if you are really ready to get to inbox zero, I have learned and implemented another advanced level of this. I'm going to quickly just share what this looks like because it really does help as well. I'm telling you, it's amazing, but it's not for the faint of heart. It is tough to implement and to be disciplined around, but some of you are going to love this. So we keep our completed folder, but then we make an urgent folder. So the idea behind this advanced level is as emails come into your inbox, you immediately put them in a folder. Okay. Once you know what it is, not that you like read the whole thing, but oh, I know what that is. I'm going to move it to the appropriate folder. And it helps you prioritize before you sit and respond to emails. So I have an urgent folder, important. The difference to me is urgent. It's got to happen today before I leave, before I like shut my laptop. Important is in the next couple of days or by the end of the week. It is time sensitive, but it's not urgent. Okay. Need for upcoming use, we talked about. Then I have a non-time sensitive to do. So when people send me things like, hey, if you get time, could you look at this? Or, when you have some time, give me your thoughts on this. So if it's not deadline driven, I'll put it in that folder. And then, of course, the reader watch when time. And again, I label these with the number at the beginning. So these are the top 6 folders in my inbox. And because I'm putting emails in there as they come in, I am often at inbox zero, my friends. Okay. So when I sit down, I'm going straight to the urgent folder and addressing those instead of going through my inbox and going, oh, which one should I do? Because we read 10 emails again before we pick which one we're going to tackle. And that is a waste of time. All right. So advanced skill, but I think some of you are up for the challenge. So take or leave, whichever of these work for you. And I think you will definitely see some benefit, even if you just incorporate 1 or 2 or 3 of those new folders. All right. So let's switch over to the calendar management. Now, what I have found, I used to just put all of my to-dos on my calendar because I wanted to block time for those. But then I figured out that your calendar probably has, now I use Google, but even if you have Outlook or other calendar systems, most of them also have a task function. And it's a little different than just putting it on your calendar because you can set a deadline for the task. And if the day passes, so let's say I had 3 tasks on Monday and now it's Tuesday, it will tell me you still have 3 tasks that you didn't do yesterday. And it will actually kind of yell at me and say, you haven't done these yet, and encourage me to move those forward. So just something to think about if you're not already using your email system or calendar system of task management that's already built in. That's super helpful. And then I love color coding my calendar. Now, that sounds time intensive, but it's as easy as when you set up an event, you put, the location and the name and who's coming, and then you just pick a color. It's that simple. I mean, half a second that it takes to add this. And I love it because when I look at my week of my schedule, I can see how much of my time is in meetings versus networking. I run a different business than most of you. But for me, it is, my volunteer time, my travel time, when am I speaking, when am I consulting, those types of things. But for you, it might be meetings are one color, team support time is another color, personal is a color, administrative time at your desk is a color, right? You can set your own, but I really love it because it shows you where you're really spending your time. And again, helps you prioritize on that. All right. So now I know Some of you are just like, ah. I know that this is a lot. I just want you to get a couple of nuggets, okay? And I know that some of this is easier said than done. Um, some of us are wired to be a bit more organized than others. Some of us have to put in more effort to get organized. But I promise you, baby steps will get you there. So if you just start doing one new thing of organization, every month or every quarter, over time, it's going to become more habitual and you are going to be within a year or two far more organized and happier, more less stressed, right? Than you are today with everything coming at us. So don't get discouraged. Just take a breath, first of all. And I had all kinds of people say to me, as I've mentored folks to get more organized over the years, but I was doing it, Cara, and then I went on vacation and I came back and everything fell apart because I was completely underwater again, went back to my default way of doing things. I'm just all in my head, carrying it all in my head and I fell out of my habits, right? So here are some tips because it's going to happen, whether it's when you get back from vacation or you got sick or things just really did pile up more than normal or more than usual at work, then here are some tips to think about. So, first of all, if you have set those calendar reminders, right, checking in with people and doing this on weekly or monthly timetables, you can push back or even just skip those non-VIP tasks. That's going to happen. All right. So that's okay. You also may want to visually identify, I use an asterisk or a pound sign for anything deadline driven that's on my schedule. So I will say, like, with an asterisk, due March 3rd, work on this. So I know that that one can't be pushed back because it really is deadline driven. We want to think about what is client facing or customer facing or resident or patient or guest, whoever you serve. What is the customer seeing? Because we want to make sure as a business leader that we're not dropping the balls the that hurt the reputation of the company, right? That make our company look bad, because that can absolutely get us fired, and we don't want that. So prioritize, often kind of that customer facing things that need to be addressed before we address internal things that a customer wouldn't know was going on, right? Set an out of office. Now, you might want to check with your boss or your team before you do this. But when I come back from a long vacation, for example, a week or more, I'm going to set an out of office for a few days that says, I just got back from vacation and I'm catching up. So please give me a few days to respond because a lot of people, they think, I mean, I know I do. I was raised to believe in the business world, a 24-hour response time is what I should expect from a professional person that is being professional, right? That was kind of an unwritten expectation. And so if you set your out of office at certain times, or maybe you're in back-to-back meetings the next 3 days, you could even say, I'm in back-to-back meetings Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this week, and we'll have limited email time. My response may be delayed. Thanks for understanding, or contact this person if your need is urgent, that type of thing. So you may want to do that. And just don't forget to breathe. Okay, don't forget to breathe. In fact, here on the right, I've got the post-it note. Another tip is just if you're behind, you're overwhelmed, all your systems and calendars are yelling at you of overdue things. I encourage you to just grab a post-it or a sheet of paper and make your today list. I'm overwhelmed. I have to do something. What needs to be done today? And just identify some of those time sensitive things as well. And then also, we can definitely get that. What is it? Paralysis by analysis. I don't even know which email to do. I've got so many. I don't know what to work on. I have so much on my plate. And so I encourage you to just do something productive. Sometimes when I'm looking at my email, if it is overwhelming, I'll just pop into my spam folder and delete my spam, because at least it's getting something off my plate. But I'm a little overwhelmed. So we just don't want to freeze. We don't want to stop being productive. Definitely take a breath and breathe and then say, all right, I'm going to take the third email and I'm just going to do whatever the third email is and tackle that, because then you'll get that ball rolling and be able to at least get something done instead of losing that time completely. All right. So, hopefully these are some tips for you when you get overwhelmed or we do get behind or you're getting started and you're thinking, okay, well, how can I get started when I'm already underwater? These might be some tips for you as well. All right, so now with the last few minutes I've got, I want to switch over to the at-home side. And some of these tips will translate into work as well, but I want you to think about which piece of silverware runs out first at your house. Okay. You can even put that in the chat if you want to tell us. Is it the forks? Is it the knives? Is it the spoons? Which one runs out first? And that is what dictates when you need to run the dishwasher or start washing dishes. Which one is that? Because for our house, it's usually the knives. My son loves peanut butter. So he is constantly grabbing a knife and putting peanut butter on apples or bread, whatever. He puts peanut butter on everything. And so our knives run out first. Well, what dawned on me is we always have enough forks and spoons, but we always run out of those knives. So we went to TJ Maxx and we got a set of 6 more knives. We just expanded the capacity of that bottleneck. Now, in my MBA program years ago, they taught what's called the theory of constraints for mostly manufacturing. Find the bottleneck, expand the capacity of that bottleneck, and you'll get more throughput from all of your machines and all of your people. And so I started using that concept at home, and I said, what is the bottleneck that's forcing me to do this activity more often than I want to do it? So another one is your laundry. Now, I know with my kiddo, he's got plenty of pants and plenty of shirts, but he always runs out of socks first. And so he was saying, I need to do laundry because I'm out of socks. And I'm thinking, what? You have plenty of pants, you have plenty of shirts. What is the problem here? So went back to TJ Maxx and I got an extra pair of socks or packet of socks that's whether it's 2 pair, 4 pair, 6 pair, 10 pair that will help us get that extension of capacity. Okay. So I know this might seem a little bit silly, but when I have talked to friends about it, I've even posted some of it on social, and people will write me back and say, I drink tea every day and I've run out of teaspoons. And so I went and bought new teaspoons. This is brilliant. But it really can help when you find that you feel like you're doing something over and over and you shouldn't have to do it that often. There are certain things in our life that we can extend that capacity so that we have to do laundry less or run the dishwasher less, those types of things. All right. So just a little tip trick that you can use at home or at work, possibly. Okay. So AI. We got to talk about AI. Now, I am a big believer right now. I use AI. I love it, but I'm a big believer that we still need to prioritize what we want to work on, and we still need to figure out what that behavior change and activity looks like before AI can really even step in and help us. So I want us to use AI, but I don't want us to just think, well, in a year or two, AI is going to be able to do all of this, right? AI is just going to be able to take care of all of that stuff. So I know we had a question in the chat of, does anybody have kind of some note-taking apps for AI and things like that? And yes, there are a ton of those. I think the oldest and the classic one that people have been using forever is Otter. Was a very popular one even 5+ years ago. But now there's all kinds of different systems that will record. In fact, I have a device. It looks like almost like a pill, like a giant pill. It's called Plaud, Plaud, and it comes with a wristband. It comes with a lanyard. You can wear it around around your neck or you can clip it onto your shirt. And it will record your meetings, your conversations, whatever you want it to record. And it's AI driven. So it'll give you a summary or the transcript. It'll tell you next steps, what to do next. So there are some really great tools out there that you can use to also help you save time, to take those minutes or notes and really translate them into the actions coming out of that meeting. Definitely, that's a good way to use that. Now, I also use AI more. I use it partially as an assistant. Hey, can you help me brainstorm ideas to thank my people with a limited budget, right? You could have it brainstorm that ideation process. Or I use it for coaching. Hey, I've got these two team members that are struggling to get along with each other. Here's the situation. What would you recommend I do to mediate this situation? What would you recommend? How do I, it can even script it for you. Like, can you script my conversation with these two? And what are the potential responses that they are going to have based on their personality? Or if you know their disc styles, for example, we love doing disc assessments. If you know their disc styles, you can tell the GPT that and say, how are they likely to respond if I have to give them some critical feedback or resolve a conflict, things like that. So I'm definitely using AI both as an assistant and as a coach to help me. Now, with your behavior change, you can ask it for ideas. Hey, I want to get better at checking in on my new hires. When should I do that? How will I remember to do that? What should I say when I check in with them? You can have it set reminders for you and ping you at different times and say, "Hey, it's time to check in with your new hires," right? So we can start using these tools, and I definitely am certain moving forward, we are soon going to see more and more and more of those tools that leaders will be able to implement throughout their day. And even, we will get to the point where there's more automation. Agentic AI is coming, which is more of like a private agent that will do your tasks for you. That's coming, but it's going to take a while before it gets to us as individual leaders, not just to the organizational wide processes. But again, I'm going to come back and say, if you don't know what the steps are that you would need to take, you can't set up an agent AI anyway, because you have to tell it what to do. So I think this year, 2026, use AI as best you can or however you want, but really focus on your own behaviors, your own activity to build that well-oiled process and that well-oiled machine of your leadership approach moving forward. All right. So wrapping up, feel free to put any questions in the Q&A box or the chat box if you've got more of those. But my last tip for you today, and it kind of underlies everything else here, and that is we have to protect our sleep. All right. So, and you can set a calendar reminder at 9 or 10 p.m. to go to bed if you need to. But I just want to remind you that really protecting your own health and protecting your mental state of being refreshed and to be able to recoup from those busy days that you are enduring every day, we really have to protect our sleep. Put down the book, put down the remote control, really focus on how can you get better sleep. In fact, my husband struggles with sleep, and last year he got a sleep mask. And he swears it is changing his life because he's much more sensitive to light coming in the windows or from the TV or the alarm clock light and things like that. And so do really what you can, anything you can to protect that sleep, because it's going to make you a better, well-oiled machine the next day when you wake up as well. All right. So keep in touch. Send in any ideas that you have. If we are not already connected on LinkedIn, let's do that for sure. I'm the only Cara Silletto on LinkedIn, so easy to find. And if you need more leadership tips, or if your organization really wants to focus on reducing turnover this year and creating these well-oiled machine processes to do so, definitely schedule time with us. My personal call meeting link is callwithcara.com if you want to schedule some time to figure out if what we're doing for other organizations and other leaders could be of service to you and your leadership team as well. So, really excited to share some unique tips with you today that we don't usually share in our classes, but I hope you found some value there. So, thank you so much for your time. Good luck, keep in touch, and protect your sleep, my friends.